Welcome to Monster Monday. Today we are going to be talking about Abominable. This was sent to me by a subscriber of mine, Jillian Banks, who has sent me a ton of stuff lately, so I'm sure you've heard the name by now. I got a freaking framed Halloween poster signed by John Carpenter himself. Jesus Christ. If I would have known that in the video, I think I would have freaking fell over. And I got a Slumber Party Massacre 2 shirt, which I was freaking out about. And I got this, so some really cool shit from this guy, so thank you again. Let's talk about this movie now. This is a movie I'd never even heard of. Oh no, I've heard of it, but I should say that I know nothing about this movie. But with the title, you can kind of guess what it's going to be about. Now, I've seen a bunch of Bigfoot films in my life, you know, not just horror. You know, you got Harry and the Hendersons, you know, comedy and whatnot. But, you know, Bigfoot horror, for the most part, is not great. The only one that I really can think of off the top of my head that I've really enjoyed was Exists. So I was kind of going into this like, okay, we'll see what this is like. Now, this was made back in 2006, so it's not too old. It has a ton of familiar faces here. We got Lance Henriksen, we've got Jeffrey Combs, we've got Paul Gleason from Breakfast Club, we've got Matt McCoy from Ham Rocks the Cradle, a fave of mine. We got Dee Wallace, we've got Rex Lynn here from Cliffhanger, and we have Tiffany Shepis, which I've told the Tiffany Shepis story enough in my life now of how she called me once upon a time drunk. Really funny stuff, but you know, I'm not going to repeat it a billion times. Jeffrey Combs is unrecognizable in this movie. Like, I know I would have known it was him, but it would have taken me a minute or two to be like, is that Jeffrey Combs? Like, I was reading in the trivia that he modeled it after, like, an uncle or somebody he knows or something. So, but yeah, this was definitely one of the times where, because I don't know, Jeffrey Combs usually plays a very similar character and looks like Jeffrey Combs, but this one, he really just didn't look like him at all. So that was surprising when I saw him, because I knew he was in this. And so I was waiting for him, and even knowing he was in it, it was like 15, 20 seconds before I was like, so even, yeah, as I said, even knowing it was him. And this starts with Dee Wallace and Rex Lynn, and they're going out to investigate this noise outside, which is always a good idea. And they see that their horse has been murdered, or a horse, poor horse. And then their dog runs off, and I'm guessing he also perishes. So poor dog, a lot of animal death. And then we get these huge, big feet impressions in the snow. And the snow's like, I don't know, like 3-4 inches thick. And the feet prints that are in the snow, there's just ground underneath them. So I guess the Bigfoot, or the Abominable snowman, or who the hell you want to call him here, Sasquatch, I'm guessing the pads of his feet are really super hot because they're melting the snow all the way down to the earth. I thought it was funny. I'm sure that they tried to do feet prints in the snow with leaving snow underneath, which is how it would look. And I'm sure it just didn't look all that impressive. And actually, like, cutting it out to the ground made the feet appear much larger, because you kind of had scale to go off of by seeing the white to dark contrast. So I just thought that was funny when I saw it. I was like, yeah, that's not how feet print in the snows work. Although he could just be so heavy, he's just crushing it flat. And then, as I said, the heat from his feet are just evaporating it instantly. But yeah, no, that's not how feet prints in the snow work. Not shit that's this freaking thick. But anyways, way too much time spent on snow footprints. There's some fake out jump scares. Overall, I enjoyed this. My only issues is there's some definite pacing issues. There's a lot of unneeded dialogue that isn't all that interesting. kind of just some plot lines that are there just to, you know, push the story along and make it seem like there's connections and characters to care about, but there really isn't, because like you have Matt McCoy here, and he is in a wheelchair, and he's being brought back to his house by this guy after he survived an incident up on Suicide Rock, I think, or Suicide Cliff or something like that. I don't know why anyone would go up to a place named that, but they did. And I thought it was funny that when he tells this story, it seems very similar to the story in Cliffhanger, when the girl drops in front of him and he can't fucking bear being, and we have, you know, the dude from Cliffhanger in this. But anyways, so there's these 4 girls that come. I think there's 4. Yeah, I think so. But you got Tiffany Shepis, who actually gets full nude in this movie and shows it all for like a good like 15-20 seconds, and she looks fantastic. So thank you, Tiffany. But there's these 4 girls, and they're just like, one of them's getting married, and I guess that's why they're up there. This is like a bachelorette party, and then there's drama that ensues between her and Tiffany, and she like throws a drink in her face, and she's like, "You're such a selfish bitch." And then they think that the guy across the way, because this movie is kind of like Rear Window meets a monster movie, which is a cool concept. I like that idea. But they think he's a peeping Tom and whatnot, which I find to be so dumb, because when their friend goes missing, they think the guy that's right across the way is a pervert, and when their friend goes missing, they don't immediately think like, well, maybe the guy who we continue to keep avoiding because we think he's a pervert, maybe he had something to do with it. Never even crosses their mind. And then later in the movie, when the blonde is the only survivor that gets over to, you know, his house, Matt's house, she runs in, she's like, "Oh my God, thank you," whatever. And then she looks over, and there is an unconscious man, because, you know, Matt took a needle to the guy's neck and registered him unconscious. And then she comes in, she sees the body, and he's like, "It's a long story." And she's like, "Okay, whatever." And then he proceeds to tell her about his wife's death and how he was, you know, there, and how it, you know, screwed him up in the head. And it's like, you have an unconscious man in your living room. You won't tell me why right now. A bunch of my friends are dead. I was attacked by this thing. Who knows what it is? And I'm not even going to question for one single second that you might have something to do with it. Wow. Really? Like, not for 1 second? The fact that she doesn't need an explanation for why there is an unconscious man in the living room. I mean, I guess it could be argued that she thought she's A, just so scared, B, she's fucked, she's in this situation, she's like, all right, well, I better not overreact, or this guy's gonna know I'm on to him. Or she believes the Sasquatch did it, the animal outside, and he just isn't telling her. I mean, there are some things, but like, for her to not question it at all, whatever. Let's see, where are we going? I'm kind of going all over the place. So Lance Henriksen, I mean, there's a lot of people in this film, as I had mentioned, and I think this is one of those things where, you know, this is a fan of old horror, and I'm sure he was just stoked to get all these awesome named people on his film, that he appreciates their work, and I'm sure he had like, you know, X amount of dollars to get them on set for like the day or a couple days, and so those characters are all like 2-4 minute spots, and they don't really do a ton. There is a conversation between Combs and Henriksen, which was cool to see them interacting and on the same screen, but they're talking about the Darwin Award for, you know, which is something that's real, and what it is that every year this Darwin Award or whatever is presented. I'm sure they don't give it to anybody. I haven't really looked into fully what it is, but it's an award for the dumbest death that year, which is really fucked up. I mean, could you imagine if your loved one died and then you found out it they won in a Darwin Award for the dumbest fucking death of the year, I would be furious. If somebody I knew or somebody that I loved died and I found that out, whoo, baby, I would not find that funny. It's always funny when you're on the outside of it, but that would be fucked up. The creature in this looks pretty badass. I think that's like the big saving grace here, is there's some really fun kills, and the creature effects, for the most part, look really good. I was thinking when I was watching that it kind of looks like the Slim Jim Sasquatch mixed with this monster movie from the mid-90s, like 95, called Grimm. Does anybody remember that movie? It's a total piece of shit, low-budget garbage film, but you combine those two monsters together, and for some reason, that's what I see in my head when I watch this movie. But yeah, there's some pretty kick-ass kills in this. There's the one, Tiffany Shepis is pretty freaking awesome. She gets yanked out the window, like backwards. So her body's pulled forward, and she slits, snaps in half the wrong way, so her feet go this way. And it's all done in one cool shot. So they must have had some kind of prosthetic, attached to her, and then like her body was already out the front, and then her legs just bent forward. Like however they did it, it was a very effective looking kill. Loved it, loved it, loved it. The best kill in this movie, by far, for me anyways, that was I shouldn't say by far, that's exaggerating, because the Tiffany Shepis death was pretty kick-ass, so I take it back. But these are the two coolest kills in the film, for sure. And the other one, and my favorite one, is the nurse, or whoever this guy is that's bringing this guy home, Matt's character home. He decides to take an axe to the Sasquatch's back. He has some like stupid line that he says, and then Sasquatch turns around, or the Abominable. This isn't the snow, so the Abominable Snowman. Maybe when it's snowing, he's the Abominable Snowman, and then when it's not snowing, he's Bigfoot or Sasquatch or whatever, or Yeti. But he turns around and he just grabs him, and he fucking clamps down and bites his head, and it splits it right down this way. He chomps it off. It looks amazing. And then the body falls back, and this whole fucking, like his whole face is completely missing and flat. Looks so kick-ass. And he keeps grabbing the girl and pulling up the rope because they're like rappelling down, which I think is so over-exaggerated. There had to be a different way down. It wasn't that ridiculous that they had to actually get climbing gear up. And it's like, I don't trust this guy with climbing gear. Okay, I heard your wife just fucking died, and you were doing some climbing. So why don't we try to figure out a way to like maybe just... But yeah, I don't know. That was just ridiculous. But this whole fucking film is pretty ridiculous. We get a Breakfast Club little reference here when Paul Gleason has his little coffee mug. It says, "Don't mess with the bowl." So I thought that was a nice little cute wink, and I think that's proper fan service. I'm not against fan service at all, and I'm not against like winks to other stuff. But I thought that this one was done pretty tastefully. And let's see. I'm trying to see. Have I talked about most things? I think I did. Oh, and then the big fight. Because I think they use their budget really well here. It looks really good. This Blu-ray is a nice transfer. And, they do clever things to hide where there isn't a budget, and to make it look like more is going on than is actually going on. Like he flips a Jeep, and they cut it and edit it in such a way that they could flip a Jeep up on its side without probably doing a ton of damage, and get the shots that they need and make it look like a Bigfoot fucking flipped the Jeep. So smart use there. And then they're driving away. They get in the car. They're driving away, and the Bigfoot like immediately picks up the back of the truck. Reminded me of My Pet Monster live action movie. How many people here have seen that fucking movie? I'm gonna have to do that for Monster Monday one day. I love that stupid movie. But yeah, then he lets it down, and they drive straight forward into a tree, and she goes through the windshield. They must have been going like 15, 20 miles per hour. There's no fucking way she went through that windshield. And if she did, she'd be fucking dead, because she'd just be sticking her head, would only be the only thing through, and then it would have cut her neck. But anyway, she dies. She goes through the window. Sure, why not? And the guy throws it in reverse as the Bigfoot's coming at him. and he smashes him into a tree. And I love that they left the axe in his back from when the nurse or whoever the hell he is stuck him in the back. I thought that was really cool that they had that attention to detail. And then he gets pushed up against the tree, and the axe keeps hitting him in the back as he's like, shaking around trying to move it, and he's just like hitting the axe back deeper into himself. So I thought that shit was really cool. And then the cops come, and it's just really weird exchange. I don't know. I don't think they were hinting at a romance or anything. It felt sort of like, because it was like Wade was like over her, and they were like only like a foot away from each other. I know he's crippled, so he can't stand up. But then they get in the stretchers in the ambulance, and he's like, he says something to her, and then she is like, she says something like, Preston, and then she like gets carted off, and he's like, what were you going to say? And then he just gets put in the ambulance, and then he gets driven away, and that's it. That's the last we see of their characters. So Preston, what? Preston, I want to thank you. Preston, I want to fuck you. Preston, I am your daughter. Okay, I'm stretching there. And then, they go back to investigate. I don't know why he didn't send them to the car immediately. Like, why aren't they already investigating that car? It couldn't have been that far away, but was. And they go back, and Paul Gleason's with him, and he's calling everyone a bunch of pussies. And then they turn around, and you see the eyes, because the monster's eyes in this light up. And of course, because that's totally what fucking animals do. They have light up eyes. I guess Bigfoots do. Big feet, Bigfoots. I don't know how to pluralize that. Is it like cacti, big phi? What the fuck am I talking about? All right, but yeah, one pair of eyes, then like 3, then like 15. I thought that was a really cool ending. Because it's always one, right? With Bigfoot, and it's like, doesn't there have to be more than one for this thing to be sticking around? Like, I mean, unless the thing has like a long-ass lifespan. But there's got to be some more, right? They got to be reproducing or something to be keeping around for a while. So I did like that there was a bunch more out there, and that's just kind of a terrifying thought. Just like, oh, look how much damage one could do. Look at this whole freaking little army out there of them. I think I got it all, so yeah, for the most part. Yeah, I dug it. I thought it was good. It wasn't great, and as I said, I think that just really came from the pacing issues because of the dull character exchanges, mostly with the girls, and the whole, oh god, I can't stand this in horror movies. They do this too much, where a character sees something and then he tries to tell somebody like, I saw something, and they're like, sure, and then they just like push it off, and then they just keep seeing things over and over, and they just keep coming back, and they're like, okay, enough, and then they think they're gonna help, but then they like shut it down. It's so old. It's so old. So those kinds of, a lot of horror movie tropes here that I don't like. Like, there's plenty of tropes that I'm fine with, but there was a bunch in here I wasn't a big fan of. So overall, what ultimately saved the film was the creature design, the kills, stuff like that. Seeing Tiffany Shepis completely naked. those are the glowing things I have to say about it. But yeah, I'm glad I watched it, and I'm glad to own it. There is a short film on here, which is 16 minutes long, called Basil and Mobius, No Rest for the Wicked, and it's written and directed by this director, and it's got Ray Park, really? Like Darth Maul Ray Park? Malcolm McDowell and Kane Hodder in it. So I'll have to check that out and maybe get back to you, but there you go. So Monster Monday's over. Thank you again, Jillian, as I've said like 50 fucking times now, but I don't feel like I can say it enough. So, all right, guys, until next week.